What's up, guys? Welcome back to Huddle to Hardwood and Spartan fans. We are going dancing to the Sweet 16 in back-to-back years. So I know I'm super hype about it. My name is Jacob.
My name is Holden, and yes, we are back in the Sweet 16, and we are facing the UConn Huskies, who have won two out of the last three national championships. Yeah, versing a very good head coach and program with Dan Hurley. Two very respected head coaches going at it. Those two have been talking back and forth and how much they respect each other throughout the years. So interesting, very fun matchup we have going into the Sweet 16. UConn opens as a 1.5 point favorite with a money line of minus 128, and then Michigan State's money line sitting at 106. So I'm expecting this game to be very close, and I expect the same. Um, but yeah, it's with our little region here, it's coming down to some pretty big programs. Obviously, St. John's is not like a huge, well-known program, but with their coach Rick Pitino, you got a lot of very high quality programs and head coaches. It's kind of like its little own mini Final Four here in the East region with Tom Izzo, Dan Hurley, John Shire, and Rick Pitino. So we'll see what happens going with this game. We'll obviously dive more into it, but yeah, looking forward to it, and hopefully we can move on to the Elite Eight and have a shot at the Final Four for the second year in a row. Where obviously we didn't make it to the Final Four last year, but hopefully we can go back to back Elite Eights. That'd be pretty cool. But without further ado, Jacob, I'll kick it off to you, or you can go talk about their last five games and how they've been looking lately.
Yeah, so I mean, for those who don't know, UConn's 31-5 overall. They finished 17-3 in the Big East, where they finished second overall behind St. John's. And I've been doing something a little different for these playoff games or March Madness games, where I've been noting down their notable games throughout the season. So, in my eyes, UConn has had nine notable games this year, and they've won six of the nine. Um, to start stuff off, they beat seven BYU. So when I say these numbers, these are all their rankings at the time they played. So they beat seven BYU. They lost to number four Arizona, 71-67. So they played Arizona pretty well. I believe both squads were healthy, or UConn might have been missing someone for that game. But still is very tough opponent. Then they beat 13 Illinois, which we also beat, 21 Kansas, 18 Florida, who just got bounced for those who weren't paying attention. This one, I don't necessarily consider, I wouldn't have considered this a notable game if the circumstances were a little different, but I have Texas as one of their notable games because Texas is in the Sweet 16. Like I was saying, if Texas never made it this far, they would have never been considered a notable game. But then for these final three games on the list, they were all against St. John's, where they are 1-2 against those, with one 20-point loss to St. John's and
40
uh,
point win.
one, yeah, and then 10-point loss. But yeah, going into the last five games, they beat UCLA 73-57. Alex Caravan led the way with 27 points, and Braylon Mullins had 17 points. This game, it was a lot closer in the first half and part of the second half, and then Alex Caravan just got insanely hot from the three-point line, and they really started pulling away towards the end. And yeah, and then they have a win against Furman. They won 82-71. They really honestly should have lost this game if it wasn't for Terrace Reed, who had 31 points and 27 rebounds. I believe he's the second player since like the
It was like the
60s or
60s,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, to record 25 and 25. And he would have been the second player to record 30 and 30 behind Wilt, I believe. But yeah, then Alex Caravan added 22 behind Terrace Reed. Then there was that loss to St. John's I was talking about where they um, lost by 20. Terrace Reed had 17 points this game, and Alex Caravan only had seven. So they really shut them down. I really hope our coaches and our guys are really looking at the St. John's games because St. John's really had UConn's number besides that game where they didn't score a field goal for the last like 19 minutes of the game or something crazy like that. But yeah, I really want us to watch those films so that way we could see what they did. But yeah, then they had a win against Georgetown, 67 to 51. Braylon Mullins led the way at 21, and then Silas Demery had 10. And then to finish it off, they had a win against Xavier where they won 93 to 68. Solo Ball had 19 points and Terrace Reed added 17. So we can start talking about some of these matchups and key players to the game.
Yeah, so I think the first one I'm going to name off, I think, is going to be the absolute difference in the game. I think if we're able to stop this player, I think we have a great chance to win. But at the same time, if we cannot find a good matchup for him, I think we lose this game. Just with how our starting lineup looks and our typical rotations and the guys that we have to throw at this man, I think we're gonna not necessarily have a hard time, but Tom Izzo's definitely going to do have to do some, like you said, looking into film on how to stop this guy, looking at other games. But the number one guy I have on here is Alex Caravan. He is probably the most experienced player in college basketball right now. He's got two national championships to his name. He's been there this last 4 years, where UConn's been a very dominant team. But yeah, he's averaging 13 and a half points per game and shooting 39% from the 3-point line. Um, he is they play him at the four. He's because he is 6'8", but he's not like a big and like kind of muscular guy like a typical four would be. But the reason why I think he's going to be a matchup problem for us is because yes, he's got that 6'8" size, but he is constantly moving around. Like he obviously I'm not going to sit here and compare him to Steph Curry, but he moves around like him. He's just constantly running around the arc, coming off of pin down screens, just curl screens, like literally anything. And he can also handle the ball very well. He's a very capable guy in the post, mid range, 3-point. Like he can pretty much do everything on the floor. He's also a very good defender. So I really have a hard time kind of pinpointing who I want on him. I think we're going to throw a mixture of guys on him. I think it's going to be tough with him being at the four because they play like three guards and then you got Caravan and Terrace Reed. So just because he's at the four, that doesn't mean I want Jackson Kohler on him. I have noted here that Jackson Kohler, I think, is going to have a tough matchup defensively, like everywhere throughout this game. I don't really think he fits well with any of what UConn typically likes to do because UConn is an offense that is just loves to move around and do a lot of off-ball movement and all this kind of stuff. So right now, I think a big portion of the matchup is going to have to go with Cohen, how well he's been playing defensively as of late, and I think he's just got the athleticism to move around with them. I'd say Cohen a little bit, Jordan Scott a little bit, but we need Jordan Scott to guard some of these other guys. So I'd like to see Cohen on him predominantly. It might be a little bit of a challenge for Cohen because sometimes he's been better as of late, but sometimes he's been getting lost mentally on where to be. He might be a step too slow. Obviously, his athleticism sometimes makes up for it, but he's really got to tune in to this and watch a lot of film on Alex Caravan because he's going to be moving and flying around. Like Cohen's just got to be locked in on him this entire time because I think if he gets going and we're struggling to guard him, I think it's going to be a really tough night for us. But like I said, if we're able to shut him down, I like our chances. But yeah, how do you feel about the Alex Caravan matchup? Because it's the one that worries me the most.
I think he's a nightmare for our team, to be honest, especially if he shoots the way he did against UCLA. I had noted that I want Cohen guarding him. I really don't want Jackson to be anywhere near Caravan unless he's like staying in the post, which we know he doesn't. And look at for those who don't know what Holden was talking about with the Steph Curry comparison. Look at the way that the Warriors run their offense and UConn runs their offense because they run it very similarly. And Alex Caravan is a nightmare. He's just running through so many different screens. He's going at least through 3 or 4 screens per possession. And it's tiring for defenders. And you just get caught on one of them, he's getting an open shot. So we got to figure out a way how to stop him. I and I'm worried with where to put Jackson because if he can't keep up with him, he's not gonna be able to keep up with the guard. So I guess don't be surprised if you see a small ball line up a lot of the game, this game, and seeing a lot of Cooper and Jackson like switching each other out a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that I he's the one I'm definitely most worried about. And I don't know how we're even gonna switch screens or anything because if they set a screen for him, our big guys are gonna be too slow to keep up with them. But if there's a guard too, our guard's gonna be too small for him in the post. So he's really a defensive nightmare for us.
Yeah, and then one thing I've been hearing just around is like everyone's mostly saying, yeah, we're gonna put Cone on him and stuff, but then a lot of people throw out was like, oh, maybe you can throw Cam on him, and I'm just like, that scares me. I mean, Cam's like a similar size to him. I don't think he's Cam's the type of player to be able to just run around and fly. Cam can move pretty well for his size when he's guarding other fours that are not doing what Caravan's doing, and we know Cam he likes to foul, so I feel like that's not going to end up well if we try and throw Cam on him. I think obviously just with rotation wise throughout the game, you can't play Cohen 40 minutes. Like he's going to have to come out and someone else is going to have to guard Caravan because I think Caravan typically plays a lot of the minutes. So I'm very worried about that matchup. But like I said, if we're able to figure it out and maybe Alex Caravan just finds a night where he's not hitting his shots and we get lucky and we get him on a bad night. But I think the matchup for Caravan is a make or break for us. But
Yeah.
and yeah, and the second guy I have on here obviously is Terrace Reed. He played at Michigan for 2 years, and then he's been at UConn for the last two. Didn't have an amazing year last year. Was kind of like a mid-tier big, and then he really leveled up his game this year. He's averaging 14.2 points per game, and then about 9 rebounds a game. So he's averaging about a double-double every game. He's 6'11". He's like 280, I think I've been hearing. So he's like a very big and stocky guy, very muscular guy. Um, Obviously, I'm going to have Coop on him. I think Coop needs to be on him for the majority of this game. I think you'll see a couple times when Jax matches up with him, but I don't think it's going to be necessarily the best matchup. But I don't know. Like I said, I think Jackson just going to have a hard time finding like a comfortable matchup for him as much as it sucks. I think we're going to be able to use, I should have said this with Caravan. I think Jackson is going to struggle on the defensive end, but I think he could be very successful on the offensive end in this game because I think obviously Terrace Reed's going to be guarding Coop most of the time. But I think where Jax has the advantage on offense is in the post, where we like to see him in the post. Granted, they'll probably do the same double teaming stuff, but uh, Alex Caravan's probably going to be guarding um, Jackson Kohler. So if we get the opportunities to give it to Jackson Kohler in the paint, I think that'd be very good in this game. Like I said, he's just a struggle defensively. But I think if we keep Terrace Reed off the boards, we'll. I mean, I think a lot of the times he gets open to score is off of like as we said, UConn's constantly moving around. I don't think he's necessarily a threat to get the ball and go one on one and show off his post moves. I think a lot of the stuff I've seen from him this year, where just the constant ball movement and he sets his off ball screens and he does like a little slip or a roll or something like that and he gets it in the pocket to score. So, like I said, our bigs are going to have to be very, very tuned into the screen games. Obviously we're gonna have to hedge a little bit, but you're gonna have to make sure you're hedging properly to get back in time because then they're looking for Reed on that in that post feed. So, but yeah, what do you feel about Terrace Reed matchup in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind Terrace Reed's game a little bit, and I know he's a pretty good rebounder as we saw in the first round. I just don't I just really don't know about Jackson, man. Like I guess I also wouldn't be surprised if Jackson doesn't get many minutes this game either. Like I still think he's going to start, obviously, but I would honestly expect a lot of Cam Ward this game if he can stay out of
Mm-hmm.
foul trouble because he's definitely strong enough to battle Terrence Reed in the paint, and he's a little quicker on the feet than Jackson is. So
Terrace can move too for his size. Like he's
yeah.
he's pretty quick moving dude.
I just don't because I really want Jackson on the offensive end. It's just like I just don't know where we can sacrifice on the defensive end. So he's either gonna have to have the game of his life on defense or he's gonna have to get some lower minutes. And I know it's gonna be a really tough decision for Coach Izzo, but I mean he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, and there's not really any right way he can go here. But I mean, yeah, as long as we shut Terrace Reed off of the boards, but kind of like UCLA did, I think we have a good chance at completely shutting him down
He
because
struggled against Booker. Like I
yeah.
just was so surprised by that. But
So it's like, I mean, if he's struggling against UCLA and he didn't really start picking it up towards the end when they started overplaying Caravan and getting some offensive rebounds towards the end, like he was pretty quiet most of the game. And I mean, like you said, if Booker can do it, Coop can do it. So, I mean, I guess I'm not necessarily as worried about him as I was in the first round when I watched them play. But I mean, we'll see how it goes.
and then next, I got some of their guards here. Next, I got Solo Ball on here. I think it's a sweet, sweet name. I love the name Solo Ball. He's averaging 13 points per game on the season, shooting only 29% from three. I've heard a lot of people. I also looked at it's a fact check before this video, but he's down about 12% percentage wise shooting three from his freshman year and down a couple points per game. So he was shooting the ball and scoring the ball much better as a freshman last year. And I kind of expected him to be like Big East Player of the Year type of caliber because I thought he was going to be really good coming this year. But he's really struggled for most of the year. Like I said, 29% from three, which is down 12% from last year, and he's only shooting 39% from the field. He's still a very capable player. Don't get me wrong. He's a nice combo guard. He will get his shots up. I just don't know. I've heard from a couple of UConn fans just watching some podcasts and stuff that they think he might have the yips. If people don't know what that is, I think you can explain it better than I can. But basically, he's just struggling with his shot and is in his own head. I think people said that he changed his form a little bit from last year. It just has not looked the same. Um, but yeah, like the two games that I've watched them in the tournament, it just seems like he struggles. Like even having a wide open three, wide open kick out, like it's just always off. Like it's not like it's on mark where it's like, oh, you're making it, you're missing it long or you're missing it short. It's like off to the left, off to the right, just like throwing up bricks. But he's struggling. I know we played them earlier in the season. Well, in the preseason exhibition game, and he was their leading scorer, and he was killing us. He was doing really good, and we didn't have an answer for Solo Ball in that matchup. But since the beginning of the season, he's really been struggling. But for the most part, he's a 6'4" slash 6'5" kind of combo guard. He's not their point guard, but he'll run it sometimes. But I'll have Jordan Scott on him, following him around. I think it's a good matchup. They're both similar size, similar kind of archetypes, but that's what I have for Solo Ball. Like I said, he is one of those players. He could find his get off his slump and start hitting shots because he takes a lot of shots. So like if he sees a couple fall, like we've been talking about it, shooters that shoot once they see a couple go down, then they're confident and they'll see him going in. But yeah, do you have anything to say about Solo Ball?
It would be just our luck that he finds it when we play him. So I really hope that's not the case. I do like the matchup with Jordan Scott on him. Other than that, I think you hit everything that I
Yeah.
had.
And then the last two here, I have their uh, starting point guard. They're kind of dealing with some injury stuff, so I got both of them kind of mixed in together. Malachi Smith started the last couple games, and then their starting point guard for 80% of the season, Silas Demery. Demery's averaging 10 and a half points per game, and then Malachi Smith's only averaging 3.5. He's just started to play a lot more recently because I heard that Silas Demery injured his ankle pretty bad in the St. John's game recently, and it was expected to be like a multiple week injury where he wasn't supposed to be playing. And I think he's just been playing through it. It must have been wrapping it up a ton. But the last couple of games, I mean, I haven't watched Silas Demery like like close and all that kind of stuff, but I'm hearing from a lot of UConn guys that he's noticeably playing a lot slower and he's playing a lot less minutes, obviously, because he's in the last couple of games he's come off the bench for Malachi Smith, but he's still been playing out there. Um, and trying to contribute as much as possible. But I think they're going to kind of be split in like 2020 on minutes. Silas Demery is the better of the players. If he was fully healthy, he's a lot more of a scoring threat and he's a really good distributor. But it's kind of different now that he's kind of playing while hurt almost a little bit. So I think obviously I'll have Jeremy on both those guys when they're in. But I think this is where Jeremy could have the upper hand because, like Caravan, obviously Jeremy's not running and going through screens. He's running the offense, but he's constantly with the ball, running like pushing the fast break. Like he's constantly moving. He's a fast guy. He gets up and down really fast. So, especially when there's going to be a guy like Silas Demery on him who's not going to be at his full strength, running and keeping up with Jeremy Fears. I think Jeremy Fears will have the advantage there, offensively and defensively, just because I think with Demery having a hurt ankle, I think that Fears will be able to get by him a lot faster and keep up with him easier. But and then other than that, with their struggling guards and some of their injuries, a guy that's been coming off the bench, getting a lot of minutes recently, is kind of like a two guard slash three. His name's Jaden Ross. He comes off the bench. He's been playing really well as of late. I don't have the box score up with me. I know he played pretty good their last game against UCLA. But he comes off the bench. He's a very capable shooter. He's been playing hot as of recent, and I think I'm pretty sure I heard Solo Ball got like 12 to 13 minutes last game because he was really struggling, and Jaden Ross really picked up the slack for them and played really good off the bench. So you can see him coming off the bench and providing a spark for them. And I'd probably say like a guy like Jordan Scott or whatever one of our two guards are out there, probably just switching on and off with Jaden Ross. But you can see a guy like him coming off the bench and probably playing better than some of the starters. But that's what I got for the key players and matchups. If you have anything else to add, feel free. But now we can move on.
Um, yeah, I'm not really sure how we're gonna do the guard matchups. I guess I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if Trey Fort came into the game a lot earlier than usual, or Kurtang came into the game a lot earlier than usual to sub Jackson out, so that way we have three guards on the perimeter. And I honestly wouldn't mind seeing Trey Fort come in before Kurtang, because Trey Fort's been playing really good defense lately. And he's been hitting his shots. Kerr's been hitting his shots too, but I just like the energy that Trey's bringing off a little better. So I wouldn't be surprised if Trey came in like super early, like before the 16-minute timeout. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything else, so we can just jump right into the stats. Um, this team doesn't attempt too many threes from what I was looking into. I couldn't get exact number. I just kept getting between 15 and 23s a game, so I just put it in the middle. They average around 17 and a half threes per game, making eight of them. They average 36 rebounds per game, and they score 77 points per game while only giving up 65 points per game. Their three-point percentage is pretty average. They average 36 percent per game, while shooting about 48 per game, and they have a 71.6 free throw percentage. So they're not the greatest free throw shooting team, which is kind of a relief compared to the past two games we played. But I mean. Yeah, I don't know. But the last two games it hasn't really mattered, and they were missing the free throws anyway. But the last thing I have is that before the tournament started, they won seven of their last 10 games, so they were kind of on a hot streak. But yeah, so we can jump right into keys to victory. So would you like to go first?
Yep. So, like I said, with the player matchups, number one key to victory is figuring out a way to stop Alex Caravan. I think if we do that, we have a great chance to win. It's gonna be a tough assignment, just moving guys around. It's gonna be a tough assignment for Cohen. Hopefully, Cohen chasing him around all game is not going to affect how he's been playing offensively because he's been playing very good offensively the last two games, and I don't want him losing that because of how much effort he's putting in defensively. So, number one thing on here is stopping Alex Caravan. My second thing on here is to keep Terrace Reed off the boards. If he's getting, I think the last few games or maybe even on the season, I've also heard from just other podcasts and stuff that I don't know if it's throughout the season or just the last few. He's averaging like 5 to 6 offensive rebounds a game. So we really got to shut that off. We really got to get a body on him defensively when a shot goes up because he's very prone to getting offensive rebounds and making a kick out back out to one of their shooters like Alex Caravan, and we can't give up second chance points in this game because that'll get them going. And that's what has been successful for them, at least in the last 2 games. And then another thing for Terrace Reed is he's very prone to get in foul trouble. And if he gets in foul trouble, they bring a freshman uh, center off the bench who's like he's decent, but he's nothing to worry about. Terrace Reed, if we get him in foul trouble like he was last game, and he tends to foul a lot. If we take him out of the game, it comes pretty one dimensional for the team where it's just going to run through all their guards and mostly Alex Caravan, and that might be a point where if we get for aggressive and we get Terrace Reed in foul trouble, it might be a point where we can finally throw Jackson in there. We can afford to put Jackson in there to help us offensively. And then just like I said with the Terrace Reed and keep him up the boards, win the rebounding battle. Where I think we're still the number one rebounding team in the country right now, just with in terms of offensive and defensive rebounding. I think they rank pretty good in terms of rebounding overall. Granted, they don't play the hugest competition, especially this year in the Big East. Um, I think we're very capable of beating them on the boards. I think it's very important, like I said, with Terrace Reed. And then I think we need to, as much as possible, abuse them in the post. Obviously, they have Terrace Reed; he's capable down there, but for the most part, they are a very small lineup through and through. Like we said, it's going to be tough to find a spot for Jackson defensively, but if when Jackson's in there, we need to be using him offensively in the post when he has Alex Caravan on him, and maybe Jackson Kohler gets going in the post where he gets Alex Caravan in foul trouble being aggressive, because then that would be a complete tone switch for the game. And Jackson Kohler, he's obviously a capable shooter too. So if it comes to a point where Coop's not in the game and it's Jackson versus Terrace Reed is not very great at guarding the perimeter. So Jackson can step out and pull him out of the paint and create opportunities for himself and other people. So I think just abusing their overall small size would be a big advantage for us in this game on offense. And then we just got to be very sound defensively because UConn, like we've been talking about, is constantly moving. It's not just Alex Caravan; their whole team is constantly moving, setting picks down, like just screens everywhere, just constantly moving. They're never standing still. So all of our guys have to be very sound defensively. We got to communicate. We've been struggling recently with ball screen defense. We've been getting better at it. We got to step it up a notch because they're just going to be double the amount of screens that we've seen as of late. So very got to be very sound, communicate on defense, and then yeah, that's what I got for keys to victory. Most elite defensive stuff. But yeah, what do you have?
Yeah, the number one thing I have is rebounding. This is a team, especially with Terrace Reed, that can rebound the ball very well. So I think if we shut down Terrace Reed, we have a good shot at winning. And I'm pretty sure, based on what I was looking up, UConn is a top 10 team in terms of second chance points. So with rebounding and making sure we be secured on that first shot attempt, that shuts down a lot of their offense. So I think that's very important. I also want to run the tempo. I want to run this game fast. UConn, most of their offense is half court sets, and they're doing a lot of waiting. They don't mind taking that shot clock off, but at the same time, don't be surprised if they get a quick open shot like every once in a while to catch you off guard. But they do run a lot of half court sets and try to get their best players open using screens. So I want them to try to rush them in their sets because if we're keeping a high tempo on offense and scoring the ball at an efficient rate, they're not gonna be able to sit there and run their sets as much. They also have great out of bounds plays. I can't remember how many different times against UCLA where they had some really good plays going from the sideline or right underneath the hoop. And I feel like that's a lost art of
I was
basketball. I
gonna
feel like
say.
a lot of the time people, especially our team, they just throw it past half court, let the guard get it, set up something else. But they run some great sets out of bounds too. And what I noticed is when UCLA was in the game, they were in a fast tempo, and when they're in a fast tempo, uh, UConn tends to turn the ball over. They had 16 turnovers against UCLA. Um, so I think rushing them could really be a key to victory, and not allowing them to set up their defense as well. Protecting the ball is going to be a huge factor here. I know they're a pretty good defensive team, but also this is one of those games where we have to come out with energy. We really do. Because one thing I've noticed about UConn in the last couple games is that they're vulnerable and they're not looking like a super good powerhouse like they have been the past couple years. And they've been starting a lot of their games with little to like no energy. And when they get down big, they kind of get down on themselves. But I will say that they don't give up. So you can't just like think you have it in the bag. You got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing because they do have a great coach and they will push to come back. They'll they just have low energy. So I really think it's super important to come out physical and with energy this game. And um continuing our movement on offense, and I want to keep seeing Jeremy being super aggressive down low and driving, and he's been doing a great job of it the past two games, and I want to continue to see him thrive in that. And then so I'm gonna finish off with the things that I think this game is going to come down to. There's three things in particular. I think our bigs defense is one of the biggest things that's the game's going to come down to because it's not necessarily in the post, but it's also with how we're going to guard the perimeter too. So like we need to see how our bigs can guard the perimeter. And I think last game where I was talking all about guards, this game I think it's going to come down to all about bigs. Can you shut down Terrace Reed? Can you protect the three-point line with Caravan? Can you hedge the screens properly? Can you switch? And I really think it's going to come down to our bigs defense. Um, I also think it's going to come down to our three-point defense because even though they don't necessarily attempt a lot of threes a game, that's a lot of Caravan's game. And they're gonna, if you take away that big thing and try to force them to beat us in the post, that's when Jackson's gonna thrive. We just got to get him off that three-point line. And then the last thing is coaching. I mean, there's two teams that are both really strong teams, but have, I would say, like one glaring weakness that is on both sides. And with two great coaches, it's gonna be one of those games that's not gonna be won by talent, it's gonna be won by coaching. So that's what I'm gonna end it off with. And yeah, we just gotta trust our Hall of Fame head coach.
All right, so without further ado, we can hop into predictions here. Um, I do think this game is going to be close either way. Depending on who wins this game, I think it's going to be a small margin, and I don't think it's going to be a necessarily high scoring game. I think it's going to be a very physical. Um, and I am looking forward to the coaching matchup, like you mentioned. Just two very similar coaches in terms of their body language and how they act. I feel sorry for the refs in this game because they're both going to get a earful by both coaches. I know when we played in the exhibition, it was just ungodly amount of fouls. I think there was like 60 to 70 total free throws because no one was able to foul out in that game. But I know for sure Michigan State attempted 40 free throws. Like that's an actual fact. So I don't think it's going to happen this game, but it's going to be a very physical game, and lots of the coaches are going to be all over the floor yelling and whining at the refs and getting in their face. Probably I'd set the over underline at like point or 2.5 like technicals for both coaches. Like so, very interested to see how that goes. Hopefully our Tom Izzo can keep a more level head than Dan Hurley, and that can go against them. Maybe a big swinging point late in the game. Hurley loses his temper or something like that. But other than that, like I said, I think it's going to be a close game. The spread's 1.5 for a reason. But I think Michigan State is playing better basketball right now. and has been down the stretch. Obviously, take away a couple of our losses to finish the regular season, but I think we're playing really good right now. And I see Michigan State winning a close game with the final score of Michigan State 71, Wisconsin 60, or
With
sorry, UConn 68.
Mhm. Yeah, I think this is gonna be a classic game, and it's gonna be this comment could trigger people, but it's gonna be the student versus the master, to be honest. Like
He's got
Dan
more
Hurley
rings.
does have more rings and everything, but like um like he said this multiple times, and it's not like I'm not dissing Dan Hurley at all.
Mhm.
And I mean, like I said, he has two rings compared to Coach Izzo, who has one. But like if you listen to any of the interviews that Dan Hurley has, he talks about how much of a mentor Coach Izzo is to him, and how much he models his coaching after him, how he seeks advice from him. And I think it's going to be a huge battle of respect, and it's going to be one of those things where like it's going to be like the student versus the master kind of thing. And Tom Izzo's had a lot of success in this tournament, regardless of the amount of rings he has. I mean, he's still had success, and coaches look up to him. It's going to be one of those cases. But with that being said, I'm gonna have MSU with 77 and UConn with 74, with MSU coming out with the victory. I really like the way we've been playing, and especially knowing from what I've heard that this team, that UConn is really bad at fouling people, and we're probably one of the best foul baiting teams in the nation right now. That does give me a little bit more hope. But yeah.
All right, yeah. So we both got 3-point victories here. So hopefully Michigan State has what it takes to move on to the Elite Eight for the second straight year, and then we'll be facing another top level coach, depending on who comes out on the other end. But last time we were in Washington, D.C. in the Sweet 16 Elite Eight, Cassius Winston, my GOAT, brought us to the Final Four. So we'll see if we can keep dancing. But this will be a tough game. Very excited to watch it. 9:45 p.m. Eastern. Probably will end up being later than that, depending on the game before us or whatever. But it's going to be a late one. Hopefully, we get the dub. But with that being said, go green.
Oh, wait.